All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Serena Mastin. Serena, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
I am so honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you bet. And I want to start off by giving a shout out to Kurt Ludhart because he is the one that connected you and I. And I'll tell you, man, I love Kurt and his wife Kristen. They are such awesome people. They are, man, they got such big hearts and they're just givers through and through. And Kurt was the one who connected you and I, and we got to have a conversation and get to know each other a little bit. And I'm like, my gosh, we've got to do a podcast interview and stuff. And so here we are. And so Kurt, if you happen to be listening to this, thank you, because what just a perfect example of the power of right relationships, which of course is what this podcast is all about and stuff. And so, yeah. So, Serena, what I'd like to do is I want to just start by I want to turn it over to you so that we can set a little bit of context. I want you to be able to share about, what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work you guys are doing and the impact you're making, and also give us a little bit of backstory because what you shared with me, and I'm going to leave this totally up to you what you want to share, but I will tell you what you shared with me when we had our initial, man, that was just so moving. And just it when we just connect with people like that, it right away, I just felt such a connection with you, Serena. And I'm like, man, anything I can do to help Serena out, I'm just kind of in. I want to explore what that could look like and stuff. So
Yes, I do have every entrepreneur has a story.
yeah.
And mine it was a little tough. And so sometimes what I really feel is sharing that helps inspire and empower other entrepreneurs
Yeah.
to realize that even when you feel like you've lost everything, there's still a path forward.
Yeah.
And in my story, I started my marketing and advertising agency in 2013. I left corporate America. And at the time, I was kicking and screaming. I did not want to leave corporate America. I did not want to leave a comfy paycheck. But my mom, she challenged me. She said, if you only gave a quarter of yourself into other businesses instead of just working for someone else, there's no way you wouldn't be successful. And
Mhm.
I said, yeah, yeah, mom, you're supposed to say that. You're my mom. And she says, well, if you're not going to do it for you, do it for me. And I said, you are so manipulative because you know that I'm going to do it now. And so I embarked on this journey, having no clue what it meant to be an entrepreneur. I knew what it meant to be a CMO. I knew what it meant to run a, Fortune 5,000 company as like a marketing VP, but not an entrepreneur. And I definitely have been through the ringer. Um, the beautiful part is when I first started the agency, my husband, he came home from work early one day and he said, I quit my job. And my heart literally fell in my stomach because all I thought about was now we have zero paychecks and we're raising three kids. It was just like the shock. And he said, if I'm going to sell something, I want to sell something I believe in, and that's you. And
Wow.
so we started this journey and he, was running and gunning on the sales side, and I was building the entire agency behind the scenes. Now, it was beautiful. We hit 1 million. We built an office out. It was wonderful. And the challenging part is that what was happening behind the scenes was that I was recognizing that my husband was struggling with addiction. He was struggling with mental health issues. And then the multiple infidelities started to happen. And so as the agency's growing, our marriage is crumbling. And once I recognized that not only was I trying to hide everything to be strong for everyone else, strong for my kids, pretend that I got it all together for my team, and hide some of the things that were happening behind the scenes, I started to deteriorate physically, mentally. all of that. And when I finally found the courage to leave my husband in October of 2019, by March of 2020, he took his own life.
Wow. Wow.
So the impact on our family, the impact on us personally, the impact on our kids, on our team, our clients, our vendors, all of it just came crashing down.
Yeah.
And so the beauty in these moments is when you feel like you've lost everything. That's the turning point for you to rise up. And I honestly wouldn't have been able to continue to move forward if it wasn't for my team
Yeah.
lifting me up when I couldn't see past my tears
Yeah.
and, really inspiring me to keep going. And so since then, we've scaled back the agency. We got rid of the office. We had to refocus on our culture and our processes, and we implemented EOS. And we're a smaller team. We're a lean team. Um, but we are a strong team. I always say we may be small, but we're mighty. And I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That is awesome. That is, and every entrepreneur has been through those kinds of experiences, the highs and lows, the ebbs and flows, I mean that every person has been through that, and but entrepreneurs certainly have because not only do they have their personal life where we have these ebbs and flows, but we got our business too where we have these ebbs and flows too and stuff.
Yeah,
And you're so right because I've had the same exact experience, and it's the people, it's the relationships that we have in our lives that just get us through, that see us
a
through.
hundred percent.
Yeah.
It's community. It's connecting with people who are like-minded,
Yeah.
who empower you, who inspire you. And it's also investing in the people around you so that they can rise up in a moment like that. Because the truth is that when I was hiding everything, no one knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one knew the struggles I was
Yeah.
facing. So they wouldn't offer to help. They wouldn't jump in and they wouldn't be challenged to rise up.
Yeah.
And so once I let down that that layer, that veil of vulnerability, that's when everyone came in and honestly, I was at a place where we were over 200,000 in debt personally because of the medical bills from his death. We had over, 400,000 in debt for the business. Um, the kids and I had to move into a hotel temporarily. I had to get rid of the office. And right before we did, we had a break-in during COVID and they stole $40,000 worth of equipment. Like it was disastrous.
Yeah.
But the truth is that in those darkest moments when we feel like we're so alone, we have to reach out and provide the opportunity for others to come in and support us.
Yeah.
And that's really the only way to move past some of those really big, monumental moments in life and in
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. And it's interesting because like I have been this giving and generous guy pretty much my whole life. And in fact, I don't know a better feeling than the one that comes from giving to someone who just truly appreciates it. To me, that's the most
Yes,
amazing feeling in the world. And yet, for most of my life, I totally sucked at the receiving side. And God forbid, that I would ask people for help because I'm like, well, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to inconvenience them or like, man, what would they think about me if they knew that I was dealing with that or whatever, and, and fortunately I met a guy 12 years ago that just really changed my thinking and it gave me some new perspective on that and just
yes,
kind of pointed out that like, Kev, you're this giving, generous guy, and you love that feeling that comes from giving like that, but yet you are depriving others from having that experience because you won't let them give to you. And I never thought of it that way before. And when he pointed that out, I'm like, huh. And like what you said, once people around you knew, once the right people knew that you were going through all this, they were right there. How can I help? You know,
Yes, a hundred
and
percent.
yeah,
And one of my love languages is acts of service. That's all I give, I pour into others, I invest in others. And you're right. When it comes to receiving, it's this big scary thing because that's you're so used to giving.
yeah,
But you're right. You take away that gift from other people when you don't allow them to actually see that you need support.
yeah,
You need help. And so whether it be a community of like-minded individuals or whether it be the team that you're developing and nurturing within your business, whoever it might be, that community needs to see you.
yeah.
They don't need to see all the dirty details. Sometimes they do. I couldn't help it in this scenario.
Mhm,
They
mhm,
don't always need to see the details. But even the smallest thing, like saying, I need support. Do you have any insight? Is there anything that you can help me with right now? I'm struggling with this.
yeah,
It doesn't have to be all the details, but it does have to come across that you are not holding it all together and you're not the glue,
yeah,
that you do need a sense of community to rise up.
yeah.
Because without it, you're not doing this alone.
That's right.
You're
That's
just
right.
not.
It's interesting too that years ago, I used to think, I'd look at somebody who was really successful and be like, oh man, it sure must be nice to be them because they got it all figured out. And what I have come to find out is that, no matter how big of a business somebody runs, no matter how great things look from the outside looking in, everybody is dealing with stuff.
A
And
hundred
we're
percent.
all doing the best we can with what we got.
Yeah, but those authentic, real connections come when you're ready to share what you're struggling with
Yes.
because
Yeah.
most people have already been there and they can share their perception, their experience,
Yeah.
their insight. And that's what other people love is they love to support.
That's right.
So when we pretend that we have it all together or we show up like, I carry the world on my shoulders, it doesn't give them that opportunity.
Yeah.
And so it's a beautiful thing. It's a hard thing because it
Hmm.
takes
Hmm.
courage to really be open and vulnerable about, the challenges you're facing when you are a business owner because you don't want it to impact your business,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like that is
Yeah.
that is what you're afraid of. And when I took time after all of this happened, I wrote a memoir about my personal story. And that was a big part of my healing process. And I was terrified to publish this memoir. It's the most intimate, deep, dark secrets that I've had throughout my life and throughout business. And I struggled with it, a tug of war, like with myself of do I publish this or do I hide it under my bed?
Hmm.
But what I learned when I was writing it is that my tendency is to hide. And so I knew that I had to challenge myself to step outside of that cycle of hiding behind, some of my fears. And I had to step into my truth. And so whether or not I felt like my personal story would impact my business, I made an intentional decision to publish it no matter what. And to be honest, once people saw that, and read my story, they were inspired or empowered. They didn't judge me like I thought I
Yeah.
would be judged.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about people is we have those thoughts that we're going to be judged, but the true judge is really within ourselves.
Yeah. 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 What a beautiful experience that had to be for not only for you, but for everybody who's got to read that and experience that for themselves. Because I can only imagine there's so many people that are like, oh, you know what, man, I have so much in common with Serena and stuff, and
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
And my story goes way beyond just what I shared here. I mean, I grew up in witness protection in foster homes. I lived on the streets when I was 15 years old and I struggled with addiction and trying to find my way, which led to, horrible situations that you face as a young child on the
yeah,
streets.
yeah.
And from there, then I climbed the corporate ladder, but I had huge monumental challenges every step of the way. And so if I could reach just one person, that to me is the whole purpose of sharing my story is to really inspire that one person to keep going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Well, okay. So now that we've got a little bit of context set, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of our listeners. So, Serena, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Yes, in the moment that I went back to my team. Now, remember, I had to tell them I had the courage to leave my husband who worked in the business,
Mhm.
who generated the sales for the business, where I was behind the scenes and worked with my staff, all of these things. And my staff, they looked at me and they said, "We will do whatever it takes to work to conquer this big challenge." Because I had to leave my husband first.
Yeah.
And when I made that decision, they said, "We're going to support you. We're going to get sales. We're going to build a better company. We're going to focus on this." I said, "Great." And then when he passed away, I could not even stand. I had just, everything had crumbled underneath me. And my team rose up and took on the role of running the agency while I was healing. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. Those are the people that
Yeah.
have made the biggest impact. And without my mentor, Marshall Krupp, I wouldn't have even been able to face some of those challenges. He's guided me and pushed me, challenged me, really got me fired up on some things and and said, "Don't be a victim. You better get past this and not let it stand in front of you." And man, that is a hard thing to hear when you're in the position that I was in,
Totally.
when you
Yeah.
feel like the whole world's crumbling and your office just got
Yeah.
broken into and you have to downsize and you have to let go of key players and your cash flow is an issue and all these things. And he's saying, "Don't be a victim." And I just remember saying, "I'm not a victim." And that pushed me
Yeah.
into surviving, but not just surviving, to thrive. And if he didn't challenge me in that moment, I don't think that I would have been able to turn that corner.
Wow.
And that's another person that I would say has made a huge impact.
Yeah. So I want you to kind of, I want to dig a little deeper. So, and I'm sure you can come up with a number of examples to this question that I'm going to ask. I just want to challenge you to come up with one. I imagine it'll just come right to top of mind for you. But if you look at the relationships that you've had with your team, with Marshall, and I want you to look at a time where you personally you got to make a really substantial impact. And like maybe in the moment, maybe it even surprised you a little bit, where you were like, wow. And but you also know that that hands down never would have happened if not for your relationship with Marshall, relationship with any of your team members. What's an example of something like that, Serena?
So during that time, I we were obviously struggling financially. And I couldn't even see straight, let alone focus on trying to do sales.
Mhm.
It would be impossible, putting myself in front of a potential new client. And so Marshall came in And he became like my brand ambassador. He
Wow.
started sending me resources. Here's who you need to talk to in order to get qualified for this relief fund. Here's who you need to talk to. They need your services. They need marketing and advertising, and they're ready to go. Like I honestly, I I wouldn't have even known what avenue to go down for debt relief. I wouldn't have known how to even start doing sales because I was always in operations and marketing.
Mhm.
So it was a beautiful process. And then he coached me and he guided me and he joined me on my calls so that I had not just referrals, but deep rooted support.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that would be the best example because it shifted the whole trajectory of my life. And now not only do I own my marketing agency and we're still thriving and we're still growing, I've partnered with my mentor to offer the EOS to implement that within different organizations because of the impact it made in
Wow.
my life.
Wow. Wow. That is phenomenal. That is phenomenal. You know, and what you talk about, referrals and stuff, there's definitely different levels of referrals, and a lot of times, I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years, and I've been approached by so many people, as I'm sure many people have. Hey, if you send me referrals, I'll give you a percentage, whatever. And the thing is like that's a messaging that just kind of falls on deaf ears. It doesn't resonate with me at all, because what I want to know is, if I were to send you a referral, how are you going to bring your years of expertise and all of that to the table for the purpose of helping me further the relationship that I've already got with that person? I want you to make me look really good, you know?
100%.
And so that's what I care about. And it's not about a percentage. Sure, the percentage, that's cool and stuff, but man, it's all about the relationship.
Yes,
And
because you definitely don't want to pass on someone that you already have a deep relationship with to someone that you trust and
oh
then that crumble.
yeah.
So I love how you said that because it's true. It takes an amount of trust to find the right people that have the same heart, the same values of serving others first.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you, coming from that place of service, and when people just know that about you, you know, that's how you show up. You go right to the top of their priority list and stuff. And when we reach out, when we call a cell phone, they pick up, that kind of thing, where other people might never get through, we get through because we have that kind of a relationship.
Yes.
And and yeah, I mean, and I'm always trying. My goal with this podcast has been twofold right from the get-go, since we launched it. That, for you, the guest, I want to give you the opportunity to, honor some really amazing people who have been and made such an impact on your life and on your business. But then for our listeners who are also entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs, I want to use these conversations to inspire them to place just even more intention on creating more real, meaningful, rewarding, and profitable relationships in their own lives. And Serena, with your help today, man, we totally delivered on that. So I want to thank you for that. And for anybody that's listening to this, going, man, Kevin, I am like really moved by Serena. And like, I would like to find out more about her, maybe find out more about her book. What are any websites, any resources that we can include and share?
Yes, of course. So the agency is Pulse Marketing.
Okay.
And if they go to pulsemarketingteam.com, that will lead them to our agency. We're a fractional marketing agency that really becomes an extension of their team. So they don't have to hire multiple companies to do their marketing and advertising.
Okay.
And then my book is available on Amazon or Audible. And it's called Exposed. You
Okay.
can't heal when you hide.
Awesome. Awesome. So I will make sure I know I was just sitting there taking a couple notes anyways, but I know my assistant, she's already got a bunch of this, but I'll make sure that we've got that included if she didn't already wasn't already on top of it and stuff. And so um Serena, any last thing that you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
I think one quote that I live by that I want to share with anyone listening is you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm.
Yeah.
And there is a level of service, but it doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice yourself. There are still boundaries, and boundaries in relationships means that there's equal investment on both sides. And so keeping that in mind at the forefront, when people invest in you and you're equally invested in them, that is healthy.
Yeah.
It's, but don't put yourself out on that line without truly understanding that these are the right people in your circle.
That's right. That's right. Amen. I love that. Well, Serena, once again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. I really appreciate you. And man, I'm excited to get this out there and share it with a lot of other entrepreneurs. So thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.